Well, hello there. How's it going? It's a Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. You know what that is, right? Time for RCS Live. As always, I am Nate Mumford here, hanging out, talking today about Zetta and the Audition module. So hopefully you're well. Everything is great on your end. And let's just dive right into it. First, we're going to start with some housekeeping, get that out of the way. Look at this. I got a brand new, fancy ticker now. I can't tell if I like this or not, but hey, just a reminder, we have check your backup path, your data exchanges. We're also always looking for beta testers as well. In the upcoming weeks, we're going to start teasing Zetta 522.1, some great new features in that version. I'm currently using right now the Zetta 521.2. If you notice, by the way, there's the year times the version. That's what we're going for there. Also, Acquira and G Selector 5.1. Looking for beta users for those as well. And yes, we have the chat going too. So if you want to check in, hey, how's it going? What's going on, C-Tip? Hopefully you're well. Everything's good. Yeah, you can see there. We got the chat going here on, let's see, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter Live, Twitch, all of that good stuff. If there's a medium that you want us to jump on, let us know. We'll jump on that as well. Some cool things to talk about too. We are back on the road as well. Texas Association of Broadcasters. I'll be there myself at the beginning of August. We got so much more here too. You can see there's Radio Days, IRC, NAB The Fall Show, and so much more as well. So if you're out and about and you're going to be at one of these conferences, reach out, say hi. You want to schedule some time and talk about some goods, let us know. We're here. Absolutely. Let's talk shop. So again, that's the upcoming events. Of course, you can go to rcsworks.com or follow us on all the social media platforms, and we'll hook you up there as well. So chat's open, talking about Zetta in the Audition module. I'll be honest, this is one of those things where I feel like I take for granted, because obviously there's many ways you can preview audio inside of Zetta. We're so used to it. Just take an element, right-click on it. You can see here, there's a bunch of options here to audition, and you can see the very top over here. That's that microbar. I personally love this because when you're auditioning something, you want to hear it, you want to see it, but you don't really necessarily need to have all of the real estate workspace dedicated to the Audition module, right? But at the same point in time, it's important to note what that is. So again, what we did here is modules and the Audition module. This is a couple years old here. And I'm just going to go ahead and dock this. And my resolution is pretty big. So I'm going to make this nice and big for right now. But typically, obviously, you want to kind of dock this at the bottom. You just have it lying around if you want a full visual of the Audition module. And just let's go back here and back to basics and talk about the Audition module. Every single module in here has the option to audition something. So, for example, I have here the I'm So Tired, and no, you're not going to hear the audio for copyright purposes. So in case you're curious and I'm auditioning and you're like, Nate, I don't hear any audio, it's intentional, just so you know. But again, you'll notice over here, opening up here, right? That's the opening, audition the opening of the element. Boom, just like that. And you'll notice it's tied across the board. So we have the Audition microbar up here. We also have the Audition module down below. It's the same one, right? It's tied together. Treat the Audition module as a way for users who are previewing a lot of audio and want to have this docked at the bottom of the screen, right? That's what the purpose of this Audition module is going to be for over here. And now let's go ahead and just quickly dive in. A couple things here. Don't forget the configuration, the stream groups here as well. There is a way to audition these, right, in regards to play devices. We had a past video on talking about these play devices, how to configure them. If only, I don't know, there was some place you can go for the RCS Live archive, right? rcsworks.com/RCS-live. The full archive is over there for you. You can check out, I believe it's, is it audio? I think it's audio input configuration. I think it's what the video is called over there. So, right? Hey, Nick, how's it going? Thank you for checking in. Hope all is well. Any questions, let me know. All right, buddy? And so, yeah. So first off, we can have multiple audition play containers here. The idea is that we define either analog or audio over IP, what our audition channels are, and then we can assign them as well. So you'll see there's a VAC12 virtual audio cable for me here. That's defined over here. So you can see from my demo purpose, I have a lot of these play devices all throughout the board, but that's where we can go and define that. So some users like to have, a dedicated audition channel. Some piggyback off the hotkeys and stuff like that, have a utility mix, something like that. Again, the beauty of Zetta is you can customize all of these options, right? You can customize them. And by the way, speaking of customizing your Zetta experience, you might have noticed over here, hey, wait a second, Nate, you have an intro one down there. I might not have that as part of my preview options. Now, remember, all the ones are pretty straightforward. I can audition the entire element. I can go to the start of the element. I can stop auditioning the element. I can play pause. So that's essentially where we left off. So you can see here, I'm at 141.3. If I play pause here, we start at 40, 39, play pause. I'm at 37 versus the stop, which brings us back to the original marker. In this case, I had it clicked. So I'll put over here, right? So you can see I'll do a play pause, 5, 4, 3, 2. And I'm going to stop it, bring me right back to the beginning of that element, right? So the play pause versus the stop function. Then, of course, we have the preview options. We have opening, we have hook, we have closing, we have intro one. And you notice, like, if you hover over it, there's a very important detail here too, which is right-clicking to set the default. Let's customize how we do this, right? So a lot of users sometimes like the hook or the close. Just right-click on that. And notice, by the way, closing, right? See that? So that's now closing across the board. But I want you to, for your eye for a second, remember, we can audition through any module at any time all throughout Zetta. This is about catering to your workflows. If you're working in the log module and you want to hear how a song ends, right? Click on that element, go to the closing and preview the closing of that element. See right there. You can do that. Notice how the audition module immediately follows along to what you're trying to audition. But notice closing, right? Closing, closing, closing. These are some quick little options to across the overall audition to really define what your preference is. So I can click on this, go to hook, right? Right click on it, and now look, hook, 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 hook. That's my default when I audition something, right? So again, all I'm doing there is just right clicking on it, go to the opening, and all of the audition now defaults to the opening kind of playback, if you will. And again, if you notice over here, you might notice there's opening, hook, closing, and intro one. Intro one. Wait a second, Nate. I don't have intro one. And that's because we're going to go to our little friend up here on the top right. I'm logged in right now as supervisor, but go to your user preferences. And you notice this window right here. I'm going to center this because I'm a little OCD. And you'll notice here that there's a lot of stuff going on, and many users don't realize how this really does customize the user, right? The user inside the Zetta environment. So obviously it says supervisor. This would be, the C-tip. This would be the Nick. This would be the Nate, right? That type of user. And we've covered this in the past for themes and some log options as well. It's just a great way to kind of go in here and just take a look around and just see what you can do in regards to some of these truly customized settings, right? There's some very, very subtle tweaks. Like, for example, here, the voice tracking, one button voice tracking on there, right? There's some really cool stuff you can do in here. But we're going to pivot to the auditioning module. So notice the display audition microbar. That's this guy up here. We have, by default, audition from. That's our audition there. But of course, we can always right click and change that default. We have the pre-roll closing. That's currently 5 seconds. Now here, notice here, check this out. We have the audition module customization and the context menu customization. Very simply put, what is this? What's this down here? That's the audition module, right? Pertaining to this guy right here. What are these guys? These are the context menu customizations. So notice, by the way, the transport buttons and the marking point buttons. I had just added for this exercise the intro one into the mix. Obviously, if it's labeled in here, it's part of the environment. If I do a drop down here, look at all of these that you can add into your audition to customize how you view your Zetta experience. There's some great ones in here, right? So typically the opening, hook, closing, that's usually the most mixed, most traditional ones in here. But we have a lot of users that love the mix in or the segue, or maybe you have the loop if you're doing like a mix show. There's some hooks, as I said earlier, early segs in there too. A lot of options here for you to add these into your overall mix. Again, audition module, context menu. This would be the audition module down here. This would be the rest of that context menu customization on this end over here. Typically, I found me personally, I make them the same, right? Because you don't want to confuse yourself and have some other user jump in and say, wait a second, intro one is not there, but I can see it in the context menu, something like that, right? I want to keep these pretty straightforward. And also note, by the way, see what I just did there? Of course, all throughout, I just closed that in there, but all throughout here, I can do a intro. I can text it in and I can put the intro in there, something like that. Obviously, intro versus intro 1, 2, and 3. You want to match those up, right? So you can really customize your experience with the user preferences. Pro tip, by the way, when you go and make a change to your user preferences, typically you have to log off and log back into Zetta because you want to make sure there's a clean slate for Zetta to acknowledge. So if you are playing around with these customizations, save your work, close Zetta, or log off of Zetta. I'm not going to save my changes here. Nope, not going to save my changes. There is a log off over here. You can log off, log back in, and you'll see those changes take an effect live in real time. And remember, part of the beauty of Zetta here is that we have that detached play button, making this really a user experience, a user interface. So I can close Zetta and we're not going to go off the air because we have our server and our sequencer in the rack room that's in charge of playing out the play, pause, stop on air functionality. So from your perspective, we can make these changes in the user preferences. We can then log off, log back on, boom, no problem whatsoever. We can switch formats and layouts and all of that. Never going to affect the on-air playout. And all I did there too, by the way, is up here, user preferences. Then I went to the audition tab over here and played with these audition and context menu customizations, right? Makes sense. I know a lot of users from past videos have reached out to me and said, hey, Nate, I don't see user preferences. That's because there is something in here, and I believe it's, what is it? Is it accounts? Not mistaken, allow the user to customize user preferences. Obviously, when I go to configuration and accounts, that's going to be an administrative engineering probably thing that you can do. So if you don't have access, reach out to your engineer or your administrator. And that's the option there. Allow the user to customize user preferences. Obviously, there's a lot going on in that window. So don't be surprised if your engineer says, hey, I'm going to go and make that change for you, and then I'll save it and you can go back in, right? Because there's a lot of stuff you can adjust there. And again, you always want to do things easy when it comes to settings. Don't just go scorched earth and say, I'm going to apply everything and go and see what happens, right? And of course, by the way, if I go here, user preferences, auditioning. Oh, Nate said something about the audition module versus context menu. I can't remember what's what. F1 dynamic help. Oh, look at this beauty. I can go and read all about what I want to do, right? But of course, if I'm in, let's say, the general option here, F1, oh, look at that, general preferences. How convenient, right? So a lot of cool stuff there for F1 dynamic help. If you're bored on a Friday, I highly encourage you to jump to this window, hit F1, and read up on all of these settings first, because as I said, there's a lot of cool settings here in the user preferences, right? So I'm going to kind of do a little early here for any questions, comments for me. Go ahead, give you a couple seconds to get those in here. Again, we're talking about Zetta auditioning, but if you have a question for me, we always go and take things offline as well. So if you have a question, comment in right now. Again, we have the chat open here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter Live as well, talking about the Zetta audition module. You can audition anything all throughout here. Remember, we have the microbar up here. We got the full audition module down below. And to me, this is relatively straightforward in the sense that, you can click around and play it. You have the options here for the drop down, right click on what you want that to be as your default. We have to go to the beginning, stop, play. Whenever you add those opening, you can see hook, closing, intro one, just a quick way of previewing from that moment on, right? That's what that is there. And again, this 12D for me, that's just your play device. That's where it's streaming right now throughout your environment. I have a virtual cable here as 12D. That's where I'm streaming this. And again, you can click over here and see all that awesome stuff. You can eject it if you want to. Of course, you can always just drag it in or just preview it. That will load up the element for you as well. Very, very dynamic, very flexible. You really want to cater this to how you view and how you preview audio inside your environment, right? A very powerful tool. I always personally kind of forget how powerful it is because I just take this for granted of all the things that Zetta can do. As you can tell, it's a very, very user-friendly option to preview all of the audio. And just to kind of review here, this is what I really wanted to show you: user preference, auditioning. Look at all of these options that you can use as marking point buttons. A lot of stuff there. A lot of users don't know that those exist, right? All right, let's see. I'm checking in my thing. Boom. Overall, each checklist. Yep, perfect. Great. That's got my list over here. Again, right click, change those over there. You can assign your stream groups to as well under configuration and stream groups. You can see my audition right here. Boom. All those elements are right here. It's kind of important to know too, there is kind of an option here in regards to what type of elements you're auditioning. So if you do want to, let's say, split it and do something very unique, like just, audition spots by themselves, you can do that here if you wanted to. Just be aware of how you're designing those stream groups, right? Cool stuff over there. So last call for questions. Just to remind you, we're back on the road here as well. I'll just play this one more time. I will be at the Texas Broadcasters. That's at the top of the month in August. And we have many more events coming in the pipeline as well, including NAB Fall Show, Radio Days Asia, IBC, and so much more. So if you're curious about going to one of those shows, reach out. Don't forget, too, we're always looking to showcase our users and their studio environments, which is so cool. That's on our social media platform as well. Beta users, and I believe we are still looking for a couple of key positions here. I know that we have one of our brand new support users was checking out one of these RCS lives, applied. He was phenomenal, and he's working for us right now as well. So if you're curious about some of those career opportunities, that's over on our website over at rcsworks.com. And while you're there, you can also check out, of course, our archive over at RCS Live, rcsworks.com/RCS-live. It's my new little ticker there. I don't know if I like that or not, right? Awesome. C-Tip, thank you so much. I appreciate you checking in. I'll see you next Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time for another RCS Live. I am Nate. Have a fantastic